start with the drama side of it, which was at the end of the demoralizing game that the Dallas Cowboys had, 42-10, George Kittle pulled up his jersey and showed off a shirt that said "Fu Dallas." Um, some people had, some people were fans of this, and some people had some pretty strong criticisms. I really like that more football players have their own podcasts or going on other podcasts. I actually caught Kittle's comments on Pat McAfee, and he kind of explained why he did it, paying homage to Gary Plummer, who wore the same shirt against Dallas in NFC Championship game. Um, what was your take on George Kittle displaying the shirt? Did you think it was in poor taste? Did you think it was acceptable? What was your reaction?
So I'm not gonna say the cuss word I want to say, but I effing love it. Effing love
Yeah.
it. So the reason why I love it is so not even because of the Gary Plummer and paying homage to the guys who came before Kittle and them, but essentially the reason why I loved it is this has been a rivalry since the 80s. Like the fact that Micah Parsons eventually came on was like, oh, now he makes it personal. It's been personal. Like, what are you talking?
Yeah.
Like, your organization, and I know you're going to get to this later, but the Dallas Cowboys organization is not doing a good job with their young players and teaching them the history of their franchise.
hmm I completely agree. Um, my take on this was actually that I think that George Kittle doing that. I've heard George Kittle previously talk about when he was first drafted by the 49ers, and the Shanahans do this with all their rookies. They take them through the extensive 49er history, and George Kittle said a big part of that was learning about the Dallas Cowboys and the rivalry and how important that is to the organization and to the kind of the story of the
Mhm.
49ers. And I'm someone who really loves that. I don't want these new players to not kind of know, okay, why are these fans so passionate? Why has this been passed down from generations for decades? So I kind of love that George Kittle, even though in all recent years, yeah, this isn't much of a rivalry. The 49ers have completely destroyed the Dallas Cowboys. I think it's nice that he still gets up for this game and still thinks it's special, and that the team still understands the rich history. I know guys like Steve Young have came on, and he says every time they go against Dallas that he feels something special. Um, just watching the two, I mean, even on TV, watching the Dallas Cowboys colors go against the 49ers, there's a reason that people get so up for that game. There's a reason. I think it was 26 million people tuned in. It was record breaking numbers. Whether or not the Dallas Cowboys are, real competition or a fair opponent, I know going into it we thought they were, but whether or not they actually are, I think it's still extremely special to fans, and I really like that it's special to George Kittle, and I hope that it's special to a lot of the 49er players. I thought it was kind of funny, Micah Parsons' comments, having Deebo say, it's been personal for us. I don't know, maybe it should have been more personal for you guys. Like you're right, we did get up for it. But yeah, so how did you feel about Deebo Samuel's response to that? How did you feel about Micah Parsons' response? I feel like people are criticizing George Kittle. If I was Micah Parsons, if I was a teammate of Micah Parsons, I'd be like, hey, dude, I know you might be good, but we have to face them again, and you're cashing checks that we can't do. I know he has a podcast, but he could have said something like, hey, when you win by 32 points, you get to do what you want. We'll face them next time. Something like that. He didn't need to go on and kind of talk trash back. It just seemed to me very silly. And if I was a Dallas Cowboys fan, I feel like I'd be looking at Micah Parsons sideways. But yeah, as a 49er fan, I do not feel that way about Kittle, but I know some people do. So I thought it would be interesting to bring that side up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna give you a little story real quick. So I have
Yeah.
a cousin. He's in high school, right? He's a freshman in high school, so he doesn't really understand the '80s, the '90s history, but he does at the same time. So but throughout the week, he was like, "Hey, where are you watching the game? I want to watch the game with you. Hey, where are you watching the game?" And I'm like, I kept asking him, I was like, "This is the first time he's ever texted me or like, hey, where are we watching the game at? Normally, my family gets together." And I'm like, "You never text me." I'm like, "Hey, why do you want to watch this game with me?" He was like, "Because I can't stand the Cowboys. This is a big game for us." So for me, I'm like, the fact that like a kid who's a freshman in high school understands the rivalry and a player on the Dallas Cowboys is it, that's embarrassing. First of all, the way Micah Parsons approached it at the end was like, "Oh, Kittle, you made it personal. Now watch, when we see." First of all, I thought that was idiotic because you just got your ass handed to you, 42-10, right? You can't get your ass whooped and then come back and be like, "Hey, watch me fight again." Like, it doesn't work that way. Like, you're gonna continue to get your ass whooped. So for me, I thought Michael Parsons' comments were very interesting because there are a lot of players on that roster who it was personal for. I
Yeah.
know for sure there's a couple of players on that roster who thought it was personal. Dak Prescott took it personal. If you go to the interview from Dak Prescott before throughout the week, they asked him, "How do you feel about the 49ers bouncing you guys in the last two playoffs?" He looks over to the reporter who asked him that question and was like, "Thanks for pissing me off. You gave me the motivation." Like pretty much he got mad about that question. If
Yeah.
you get mad over that kind of question, you know it's personal. So for me, the fact that we have Micah Parsons going on his podcast saying, "Oh, watch next time we see you." I thought that was ridiculous for Michael Parsons to come say you can't say that when you were irrelevant during the game. Just like Coach Uncle Sherm said, you can't make these comments, but then you were literally nowhere on the field. Like you can't do that. It's like me saying something outrageous knowing it ain't true. Like you can't do that. And then I love how Deebo followed up on I believe it was what's her name?
Hey, Adams. Kay
Yeah, Kay
Adams.
Adams. So he was on her show. She asked him about it, and he sure enough said, "I guarantee I don't want to see us again because it's going to be worse. It's personal
Yeah.
for us." And I
Yeah.
think the 49ers, I think in the sense of this roster has made every game personal, in my opinion. I think from based off of what happened last year and losing an NFC championship the way they did, I think this year has been personal for them on many levels, not just necessarily the rivalry. The rivalry was extra cream on top of the whatever you want to call it, but it was just extra motivation for them. So I feel like everything's been personal since week one. And the fact that the Dallas Cowboys understand what kind of rivalry that is, we bounced you 2 years in a row in the playoffs. Get it together. Like you should know what it
Yeah.
is. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing comments from Micah Parsons, in my opinion.
I completely agree. I definitely thought he could have handled that so much differently. And I saw some commentary like he has a podcast, he has to address it, and it's like okay, there's much better ways to address it than to kind of
Mhm.
make statements that you clearly haven't been able to follow up on. Maybe start letting your play talk. Don't get taken out of the game. Don't